Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Masters of the Universe Origins, He-Man. But not just any He-Man, no, this is the He-Man inspired by the 2002 relaunch, the action figure line, the animated series by Mike Young Productions. Pretty exciting stuff, because you can see, it is the 40th anniversary of Masters of the Universe. However, this is also the 20th anniversary of the 2002 series. Insane. I can't believe this is already a 20-year-old line in itself. So really cool to see this coming into Origins. You know, the Origins line really started out as just retreading the vintage line, but it has grown into something else entirely now, where we're getting all these different things from various areas of the brand inserted into this vintage 5.5 scale, and I am loving it. Of course, I loved the 2002 series, so it's pretty cool to get him vintage styled. I think that's awesome. And look, man, seeing the 2002 logo on there as a sticker, man, so nostalgic. I absolutely love it. So one thing I need to point out, just like all the other figures in this wave, I ended up with the trilingual version, which is what's been shipping from Big Bad Toy Store. So it is missing the tagline on there, and the mini comic will also probably not have any words in it, which is a bit unfortunate. But as we turn this around to the backside, we do have some beautiful artwork at the top. Oh my goodness, look at 2000X Prince Adam with that big, giant, goofy power sword turning into 2000X He-Man. Oh, I can't believe how nostalgic I am for that line now, guys. It's amazing. Can you believe it's been 20 years? Ugh, I'm old. And then down below that, we've got our cross-sell, as well as action feature call-out, which basically just shows that he can hold on to his stuff. Yeah. Cool action feature. So let's go and get this guy opened up, and we will get a closer look at the figure within. All right, we've got 2002 He-Man outside of the packaging, just like all the other figures in this line. They're in the 5.5-inch scale, but since we can straighten the knees on these guys, unlike the vintage figures, they do get closer to 6 inches tall. Now, this is a really interesting concept that I really feel like we should talk about here a little bit, because I love that they're including this in the line. I've got to say, the 2002 series was incredibly important to the overall brand, in my opinion. And here we are 20 years later, which is blowing my mind. 20 years since the 2002 relaunch of He-Man. And the entire idea of that line in 2002 was to take the concepts from the 80s and update them into something that the modern audiences at the time would enjoy. And now here we are 20 years later taking those looks and smashing them back into the 80s style. Isn't that insane to think about it in that context? But that's sort of what the idea of Origins has really become at this point. This line is essentially a celebration of the Masters of the Universe brand, taking this 80s body type that they created with the original toy line, and now we're starting to incorporate all these different aspects of the world of Masters into this vintage action figure styling. It's kind of cool when you think about it like that, and really realize that they took those updated looks and just brought it back to the 80s with this. So, with that in mind, I think there's some things with this where I think that works, and there's other places where I don't think it works as much. And we're going to get into it. So first of all, overall look at this guy. There are some reused parts with the standard He-Man, which of course makes sense. The body is pretty much exactly what we've already seen, those same wrist bracers. We do have a new deco where we've got the darker browns on the boots and the shiny silver on the wrist bracers, which is more in resemblance with what we saw in that 2002 reboot. We've got a brand new chest harness that he's wearing, brand new armor piece that does have that updated H-type logo, or the asterisk, that we saw in the 2002 series. And then we do have a new pelvis piece here entirely. That's a new sculpt where it does have the updated belt that is meant to resemble that one from the 2002 line. So all in all, I think that looks really good. I think that works very well in this vintage styling. I love how they even sculpted a little pouch onto the back there, right on his butt, because we did have the pouches on the loincloth on the 2002 figure. So that's a really fun little homage right there. And then, of course, we've got a new head sculpt as well with the kind of frayed hair, or the anime hair, as we always talk about from the 2002 line. The one thing that I think is interesting is that they kept the 80s He-Man face on there, right? So that is totally the same looking face that we've seen on the updated heads that are more meant to resemble the 80s He-Man action figure, but now we've got that anime-styled hair on top of it there to match what we saw in 2002. So overall, this looks pretty good. I've got a little bit of sloppy silver paint over here on this wrist bracer that's kind of bleeding up onto the arm. But all in all, I really like this. I think this is very fun to see the 2002 look smashed into the original body stylings. So articulation, exactly what we've come to expect. Ball joint on the head with a removable head there. Head can roll all the way around, look left and right. You got the arms that can go upwards, forwards, backwards, swivel at the elbow, bend at the elbow, swivel and hinge at the wrists. Of course, you can also pop the arms out of socket at the shoulders there. Swivel at the torso. You can pop the torso off there. You got the legs on the ball joints there. They can go outwards, forwards, backwards, swivel at the knees, bends at the knees, swivel at the boot cut with the removable boots right there. And then the ankles that can move forwards, backwards, as well as rock side to side. Exactly what we've come to expect from the Origins line. Mix and match parts. All the articulation is nice and tight, so the guy does pose around pretty well. So that's going to bring us to his accessories. And this is a part where I feel like I'm going to have my complaints, and maybe they're not complaints for you, but I'm going to explain myself when I'm going through this. So these are all styled after the versions of his weapons we saw in the 2002 line. So you can see we've got a version of the shield that's got a lot more details on there. It's very textured. I do like that they painted the red on there. It's also molded in a silver plastic. It does work a lot like the other shields we've got in this line. So it's got a handle and then a little clip that clips onto the wrist so we can hold it. I want to say that the shield feels small. The shield was much larger on the 2002 one. This one feels smaller. We also have the updated version of the axe. You can see it looks like they worked in a lot of the same kind of details that we saw on the axe. There was a lot of like technological upgrades to these weapons in that line. So there's like little wires and cables and stuff on there. I will say that it's just molded in a straight silver plastic with no extra paint deco. And that is part of my complaint there. Even more so when we get to the sword. So to get this axe out of the way for a minute. And there we go, the power sword from the 2002 series. This was a big change in that era. It's come to be known as like the Techno power sword at this point. But you know, they redesigned the power sword and it was gaudy and it was weird and it was mechanical and electric or whatever, electronic power sword. I think it gets called that a lot too. And it's funny because at the time, we did all kind of complain about it, but at this point, we've all kind of grown to love it for what it is. And I will say that this looks neat. It's a good sculpt, but I have a few complaints about it. Number one, it feels too small. Again, that sword was much bigger. It was very much oversized, and that really felt like part of the characterization of this new sword to me. I hate that it's missing all of the extra paint deco. We need a lot of greens on here. We should have the red cross painted on there, and I also really wish it had the feature where you could fold it open. It would twist open just like on the vintage one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, also I just referred to the 2002 as vintage. Oof, that's probably true at this point. So here it is. This is the sword from the 2002 line. And you can see that there's lots of painted deco there on the hilts. And it also had the feature where it would swivel. It would open up. That was something we actually saw in the series. I really feel like Mattel should have given us at least the paint. I think the swiveling feature would have been nice. I definitely think the sword should have been bigger. So I guess the question is this just Mattel trying to 80s-ify the 2002 weapons by making them smaller and not putting paint on there? Or is it Mattel saving money? Or is it a little bit of both? I suppose that's up to you guys. All right, guys, it's comparison time. We already looked at the weapon. Let's go ahead and stand them alongside the 2002 He-Man so you can see what these guys look like side by side. You can really see what I'm talking about with the anime-like influences of the 2002 one. He was also much more slender, so now we've got him in that larger 80s bodybuilder motif in the 5.5 scale. The weapons themselves are still the things I don't like on the new one. Man, when you put the 2002 new weapons on this new He-Man, he looks pretty good with them. I wish we would have got something more close to these with this new figure. And just because I think it's important to see what he looks like with the standard He-Man from this line, or at least the one with the updated head. There he is standing side by side with that as well. There is some differences in skin tones, it looks like. This one is a little more on the pale side. I mean, he still looks tan, just not quite as tan. But you can see the face is very similar on those. So there you go, my friends. That is a look at the new 2002 inspired He-Man in the Masters of the Universe Origins toy line. Look, the weapons aside, I do really like this figure, and I'm really glad that we've got him in this line. I'm glad that we're also celebrating the 20-year anniversary of the 2002 series, because even if that series was technically considered a failure, it is very important to the overall brand because it brought so many fans together in the internet age. And if it weren't for the 2002 series, we wouldn't have had a cry for more He-Man that brought us Masters of the Universe Classics. And if without Masters of the Universe Classics, we probably wouldn't be here today with Origins and Masterverse. 2002 was very important to the overall lore, and I'm so happy that we're still getting them recognized in the brand new action figure toy lines. So these guys are hitting store shelves right now. They've actually been out for a little while. I got mine through BigBadToyStore.com. So happy hunting, my friends, and until next time.